Hi, Judy Herman.
Hey there, Clint. Good to see you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to join you here. This is awesome.
Well, I was in the process of telling everybody I actually met you when I was going through some life changes, and we kind of connected that way. So I have no shame, and I'm making sure I've shared this to all the pages that I need to. Yes, we're all good. I have no shame in my game as a grown man. I think that God gave us emotions for reasons. He wants us to laugh and cry and feel good and feel bad. That's the whole deal. So it had been a long time since I've sat in front of another human that wasn't family and cried until I came to you.
I feel so honored that you did, Clint. I mean, to make that space emotionally safe for you to be real is just such an honor,
Well,
for
I
sure.
reached out. I appreciate that, but I reached out to you and another lady that I think you've connected with, named Karen McMahon,
Yeah, she's
and
awesome, by the way. Yeah.
you both are great at what you do, and you do some different things, and I want to get into that a little bit. So we've progressed where I promise no snot will come out my nose today while we're talking.
If you do, I got plenty of Kleenexes
I
here.
know. I went through a box or two of them. Well, but that's okay. I think sometimes people shy away from admitting, especially guys. We talked a little bit about that. Guys are very, they're closed off. They don't want to admit they're weak, and I don't understand. I think my opinion, the sign of kind of strength in any life, men or women's, is being able to go, I don't have a good grip on this right here. I need some help.
Exactly. You know what? And so much of our society and culture grooms men to be that way, which
Yeah.
really causes problems in messy relationships as adults.
Well,
So yeah, taking full ownership of your humanity and emotions are part of that. I mean, it's kind of like we've got, the limbs, we've got our arms and our legs and, but to deny our own emotions or to close them off, it's crazy, but
well,
we've been groomed in such
we
a way.
we have, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's a little delay on this. That's my fault. It's technology is a great thing sometimes, but also our emotions are independent, are supposed to be independent of even the people we love the most. In other words, our emotions are like they're ours. They're our fingerprints. I mean, what makes someone else cry makes someone laugh. I've got a dark sense of humor. I'm very sarcastic. I laugh about things where a lot of other people would go, "Dude, you're sick. You need some help. That's not normal." Um, but I think when we try to not be who we are, we end up getting so much internal pressure, like a pot that's covered up, and and there's the fine line too. I don't think anybody wants to be the person that when somebody goes, "How are you doing?" Oh, let me tell you. Oh, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
always complaining. There's a fine line.
There's definitely a fine line. Yes.
Before we dive too deep in, because I got some specific questions, I want you to tell people who just may be seeing this what you do, because you not only help people, you also help other therapists, other professionals.
Absolutely. Actually, since the COVID, it has really accelerated what I have had a vision to do at this stage of my life. That vision is so I have a counseling practice on Main Street on the south side of Chattanooga, and I've done private practice counseling. And most of my folks have been business owners, entrepreneurs, pastors, leaders. But since COVID and seeing people by way of now telemental health, I had this vision to do this anyway. So I have spent some time. I've written my book called Beyond Messy Relationships. It is my memoir. It's an intense and dramatic memoir. So I'm kind of, discovering parts of myself beyond my profession as a counselor. I love counseling. I've specialized in relationships. But at this stage of my life, yes, I want to nurture other therapists and really spend time doing that and moving forward and providing some innovative and creative therapy. Like instead of being in an office, having therapy and taking a hike, with your therapist, right?
Wow.
Or having retreat settings, having intensive 2 or 3 hour sessions in which we're outdoors and that's so therapeutic in and of itself. So that's kind of where I'm at this stage.
It also, when you can find these other avenues, just like every business, I think most businesses, if they can make it through what we're going through, they'll be
Mhm.
stronger because they're learning new ways to deliver their message to help their consumers in different ways. They're finding new ways to do that. And listening to you talk, if we're out hiking and we've got this outdoor event where we're social distancing, I'm probably going to be way more relaxed and open than the traditional setting. And some, because the traditional setting has its place. But I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And here's what I've told my clients over the years. The counseling office, yes, it's a nice and wonderful, safe, emotionally safe and sacred space. And you have this relationship with your therapist, but it truly is an artificial setting, because real life, you go and you're going to be home and relate to your spouse or your kids or whoever it is you're living with. And that's where real life happens. Hopefully you can learn some skills in the counseling office, but I do like the idea of using the outdoors, because it's so very therapeutic. It's been that for me for many years too.
And the fact that you're reaching out to other professionals in your industry, I think is good. We forget sometimes that, who helps the pastor with his spiritual or her spiritual life. I know it's up to each individual, but it's easy to think, well, the pastor's good. The car mechanic hates working on his own car. The doctor hates when his neighbor asks, hey, my arm is hurting when they get home. A lot of times I would imagine a therapist takes on a lot of stories. Some of them, they're like, I can't believe you're upset about that. But a lot of them are pretty serious. And there's got to be a way to filter that and talk about how to navigate not only the professional side, but I would assume how to compartmentalize that baggage that you're carrying.
Absolutely. And, we're all human beings. We as therapists are just as human as everybody else. And we do have our stressors. We do have our messy relationships. And we deal a lot with, I think a lot of people, not just therapists, we deal with what you call imposter syndrome. Like, oh my gosh, if only they knew what was going on with me personally, they'd say, whoa, So, and that really was the case. My book is actually, it's a dramatic and intense memoir, and most therapists don't write their memoirs, but it's also therapy at the beginning of each one of the chapters. And so, but yeah, it was a really scary thing, because I thought, goodness, if my clients read this and they're going to say, and why are we seeing her as our therapist?
Well, we're going to talk about the book.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm probably jumping the gun there.
No. That's the great. I told you this. These are casual conversations, but I will say, if we're talking about imposter syndrome, I think that every parent on planet Earth a good parent has experienced that. How many times have we told our kids, you don't do that? I'm telling you now. And they're like, why? Because I did it. I struggle with the same things. Just don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about your book a little bit, Beyond Messy Relationships. And first of all, I think you have a pretty unique story. So tell everybody why you wanted to write the book.
I wanted to write the book. My second husband has bipolar disorder. And I have to tell people, he did not used to be my client. We actually met through ballroom dancing. And so here I am at this stage of my life. I've had 40 years of marital experiences, 2 husbands, so each unique in their own way. And with my husband, Joe, there was such partnership and chemistry that we had on the dance floor. And he told me up front, he has bipolar disorder, and he had been a well man for many, many years. Well, 4.5 years into the marriage, Clint, he has an episode of mania that I was unprepared for. And as a mental health therapist, even, so I'm trying to be a wife. There was, and I did not know how intense and dramatic and very severe. I mean, I knew it was severe, but he had been well for like 13 years and not had need of any kind of inpatient help or psychiatrist. So he almost died in between hospitalizations. I was in a very desperate place of him in a state of psychosis for a season. This was not just a few days, and I'm questioning everything. So my catalyst for writing my book was he had a second episode in 2017, and found myself in such desperation. I thought, I cannot live this way. It almost didn't last the first time. I was almost a widow or twice divorced relationship therapist. And I thought, I'm not doing this again. I'm not living Groundhog Day, the movie Groundhog Day, where you wake up in the same thing each time. So the catalyst for me writing the book basically was my own therapy. It was and anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. Yeah.
Well, was the process hard? I mean, I hear this question. Well, was the process hard, and what did you discover? And I sometimes there's good answers, and sometimes people write books because it just comes naturally to them. I would imagine when you're doing a memoir and you're talking about stuff that's not just personal, it's you. I mean, it's pulling yourself apart a little bit, and someone that you care the most about. You're revealing stuff about them as well. Was that a hard process writing that book? Were there moments you just had to push away from the table?
Oh, absolutely there was. Now, I have had a custom of writing, Clint, for many, many years. Most of my adult life, I've written in journals and prayer journals. And so I was used to writing, but putting my stuff out there, that was a huge, huge risk. I did hire a wonderful writing coach, Marion Roach Smith, and she specialized in memoirs. So she gave me a structure with which to work with. So I knew that there was going to be a beginning and an end to the story. Okay. So I wasn't going to keep going on and on and on. I'm sure some of us have read memoirs and you think, okay, this is like, why are we reading this? Yeah. So when I wrote it and I had it finished, and I had her look at it, and we cut it was maybe about 60,000 words. And then I cut it at 10,000 words off of that. But anyway, so I've got just the substance, and everything in that book is there for a purpose. If I'm describing something, it is there for a specific purpose. And there's several themes. So she helped guide me with that. And that was a really wonderful process. So in essence, my own writing, structural editor coach was kind of like my therapist. Plus, I did go to my own therapist, but writing has been a remarkable. I tell this to my clients too, when they're dealing with anxiety or other things. When you write, it is so good for the brain, because you can take these things that are stirring up in the mind and you've got a place for them, and then you can test these automatic thoughts that come. So yes, I'm doing what I'm wanting my clients to do. I'm modeling what I am teaching and counseling my clients to do. I wanted to, and it's been transformational. The entire process has been transformational for me. I'm a different person today than before I wrote the book.
Do you feel like you're a better counselor? You're a better source for the people who turn to you since writing the book?
No doubt. In fact, I came away from this project, Clint, thinking every therapist needs to write their story. Now, whether it's ever published in a memoir like mine is or not is beyond that. But it raises one's level of awareness and helps you connect the dots. This is not just my story, Clint. This is a story that, even though my situation, some people may be able to really relate and say, whoa, that happened to me. And other people maybe have a version of it, and that's okay. But the thing is, it's a universal story. It's a universal because all of us go through messy either seasons in their relationships, but we all go through messes. Like, why are we denying that we do? We don't need to pretend anymore. Like, marriage is hard. Living life is difficult. And so none of those things are in vain. And that's the main theme of my book, is that the messes beyond messy relationships, those messes that you've gone through in your life, they're not in vain. And they are designed to help you grow up, to be on this journey of divine invitations. I do, come from a Christian perspective, but I go through this transformation and I've changed in my very conservative Christian theology and thinking, because all the stuff I was going through challenged that structure that I was brought up and chose to believe. So, I was in a container, so to speak, and that was challenged because of all of these experiences and my interpretations of them.
You say based off that, there's two or three things that come to mind. One is I used to, in a different life, do some marketing and sales consulting and lightly business consulting, just when I had my advertising company. And I like to write stuff down. But as I've gotten older, my ADHD has gotten worse. And so I have told certain clients who I see their my traits in them, voice it down. If you can't write it, I understand. Get a recording or voice stuff to yourself, because I am telling you, there's something cathartic about getting it out. Just
Absolutely.
And even if it's something you listen back to later, but I've got probably 150 text messages to me or voice things that I have gotten out of my head of things I'm going to work on later. I just want to say to somebody, and I'm the somebody that needs to hear it. So I agree with what you're saying. Getting it out of your head is very important. The other two things that I want to say based off what you just told us is, I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine about kids, and my kids are older now. And so you can have a little different conversation with them. But I think it's good for kids to see parents and adults go through these messy relationships, because no one will be immune to it. They will have their own struggles. And I think if they can see us going through it and in trying to do it as healthy as possible, it actually, acting like it's perfect is not good for kids, because when they get in the real world and it's not perfect, they're not going to know what to do.
You're so right. There's so many adults in my office, and and that's one thing that we do as we go back into the family of origin, because see, the brain was being developed during those early experiences in those early years. And you learn, and I talk about it in my book about, the ways that we move toward pleasure or away from pain, and the ways that we've survived our childhoods. And we have these adaptations. Well, we have relationships in our early development, and those are what I term as the relationship dances, and they're synchronized. And so, we have this like maybe shame, facade dance. We have these. And so how we related to our parents and our siblings, we inadvertently take into our adult relationships. Well, that causes a mess, right? It may have worked in childhood, but it doesn't work in adulthood. And then our brains are not totally online until our mid-20s. Okay, so we now, beyond 20 and in our adulthood, we had the ability with which to reframe things, the ability with which to recognize what those dances have been, and the kind of partner you're likely going to be attracted to, because the brain is attracted to things that are familiar. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot more to that, but
you just started giving me therapy. You just started giving me therapy, didn't you? I'm not really, we're not live. I'm just getting free therapy right now. You don't know
that's
this.
Great.
Well, I think sometimes we forget that relationships our external relationships are pretty much a reflection of our internal relationship with our own voice to ourselves, our self-speak, what we expect for ourselves. And I heard it from you, from Karen, and I've heard it from people, even in business settings. People show up how they show up. And we, a lot of times, I'm going to hold Judy really accountable to how she shows up, but I'm not going to hold myself near as accountable, because I'm a nice guy and I'm going to give myself a break. And I know I've got a good heart, but that Judy, when she acts that way, she's got bad intent. Do you see that?
I want to say something about that, Clint.
Yes, please. That's why I said it. I want you to.
Yeah. What I want to say about that is the human brain. So we've got our right and left hemispheres, right? We've got the left hemisphere that wants the answers, that it's got to be complete. We got to know the story. 2 + 2 = 4. It has to have some closure. You've got this circle, and let's just imagine this circle here, and there's a gap of about 1 inch, and it's not closed. What does the left brain want to do? It wants to close the gap. Okay. Yes. Now the right brain, the right hemisphere, is open to curiosity, mystery, and all of that. So we've got certainty on one side, and we've got uncertainty on the other. So what the human brain, though, will do is we have a negative bias. It's a natural thing. Okay, we will make up a negative story about the other person, right? Because that's what the left side of the brain has to make up, a story. So when you have these things, whoa, Judy or that whoever in your life that just, you don't understand why they did what they did or why they said what they said. So the challenge is to get out of that and be curious.
Yeah.
So instead of judgmental, it's so easy to be judgmental, right? And so to cultivate an attitude of curiosity that said, okay, number one, we are not God, and we don't know another person's motives. We don't know why they do what they do, right? So we got and see, I got terms for that too when I help people in their communication.
Well, we're going to tease people. If you want more info on that one, you're going to have to go actually pay Judy by the hour. So let me ask you, do you have just a few more minutes?
I absolutely do, yeah.
So the writing process, was it something when you got up in the morning, did you have, because I know I know several folks that have written books, and I write content, not in book form, but blogs or advertisements and stuff. Do you sit down and go, okay, for the next hour, I'm knocking out 500 words that's going to be clean and crisp and tight? Or do you just write as it comes to you?
Good question. So once I had a structure, Clint, and see, when you write a book, you got to know your why. Why are you writing it in the first place? What is it that's going to energize you throughout this entire project? So I was really clear with my why. I knew I had to do it. This was like a divine invitation. I just couldn't not write it. So once I had my structure, it's like I couldn't wait. It was like I didn't really worry about the words, but there were times I spent blocks of time, 4 hours even, of writing and editing and all of that stuff. So it was kind of like I woke up in the morning and couldn't wait to write.
That's awesome.
And that's what this project was like for me. I know people, really, some people have a hard time with it, but and it really accounted for having some good guidance, having a great structural editor to help me along, and I knew exactly what to do next. But I would wake up in the morning, I would go outside and on my back deck, and I would just look up at the sky and see the clouds and just know, okay, God, here I am. What would you have me write today? And so in the process of it, things would come to me. And of course, I have a whole catalog, I had to index a bunch of physical journals that I've done over the years.
Wow.
I probably have 40 or 50, and they had to be, okay, I forgot all about that story. But it works really good here. And then you make a decision when you write memoir, and it's very agonizing. What are you going to leave out? And that's very agonizing. What are you going to put in? What are you going to leave out? Like, you don't
want
to
another
put
book.
in text well, yeah. I mean, and again, my structural editor was really helpful with that process.
I think, and I say this because you're well trained, you're a professional. And I said this to you beforehand, I put things as simple as possible because that's how my brain can eat it. But it's almost like personal dumpster diving of your past. In other words, I got to jump in the dumpster of all this crap I carry around, and I'm going to pull the stuff out that I can make something out of. I can polish that up. I can refinish that. I'm going to keep that. And through that process, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff. If we were to do that, we would okay, I just need to get rid of that completely. That is truly trash. I shouldn't be carrying that around. I need to navigate that out of my life, keep this story, and then clean it up, make it smell better, and then put it out there for consumption. I think we have these open tabs in our brain that stay open, and we never go back through and close the ones that we need to close.
Yeah, that's a really good illustration. Yes, because once I knew what my theme was, what I really wanted the reader to walk away with, and the title, Beyond Messy Relationships, the subtitle, Divine Invitations to Your Authentic Self, anything that did not have to do with that, even though it was an interesting story, it would have been a cool story to include, but anything that did not have to do with that title, that theme, was cut. So I do deal with divorce. I deal with post-divorce. I deal with, raising kids in a troubled marriage. I deal with abortion recovery. I deal with ADHD because I have ADHD too, Clint. And so many entrepreneurs and successful people have ADHD. So many successful people have mood disorders. Let's normalize this, okay? So I get it. I get it. but I deal with all of those things, and it isn't. I deal with toxic relationships. I deal with covert emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, all that kind of stuff, and I bring it to the surface, and I give. Well, I do need to say one other thing. May I?
You can say, I'm interviewing. I'm talking with you. This is.
I gotta tell you, I feel like I'm okay. So, but I do give the readers a formula of growth, a formula with which, as human beings, we all have. We just don't really realize it, and that is breathing in fresh air. You just breathe in. Now, when you do that, you're going to slow down the nervous system, Clint. Okay, and then also, A is awareness, the I is intentionality, and the R is risk. So every time you breathe in, so that is a formula for our growth as human beings. It's a formula for looking at the crap we've been through in our lives and it making sense. But risk of growth, it's a risk. We take risk. It was a huge risk for me to write this memoir. It was a huge risk for it to be published by Morgan James. And yeah, but you know what? I'm a different person than before I did this.
So I've got one idea for you, and then I'm going to ask you a question. First of all, here's the idea. I think you should do an ebook. So see, your ebook, it can be the stories that didn't make it to the book. And if people sign up, there's 10 stories that didn't make it to the book, and they can sign up for your newsletter. I'm just,
I like that idea. It is an ebook format, by the way. You can get it in. It is an ebook format. I got to tell you something else. Like right now, I am going through the final listening of the edits for the audio version of it.
Are you voicing it?
Well, here's the thing. I am showing up as the therapist at the beginning of each of the chapters. I give a very therapy blurb at the beginning of each of the chapters, and then I have a professional narrator who was able to do the different voices and the drama and the intensity part. Oh my gosh, she did such a beautiful job. Heidi Hansing. Actually, I have that video on my Facebook feed, and I also have it on my YouTube channel. So, but Heidi, I didn't know her before. She lives, I've never met her. But yet she resonated with my story in such a way that, my goodness, it seems like we are soul sisters, Clint. We are very different. But she read my book, and it was amazing. She wasn't just a professional. I mean, she is a professional narrator, but she put her heart and soul into the reading of it. And that was a huge risk myself, because okay, so I'm just handing over my own life to somebody else, and they're going to be reading this,
They're reading my thoughts.
She's reading my thoughts, reading all of my reactions. There were a few things I had to ask her to tweak, but she has been a wonderful partner in this journey. It's been amazing. It has been amazing.
One of the things that I will suggest people to do, and we're about to wrap it up here in a minute, but is if they reach out to you or any therapist, one of the things that I took away, and I say it, and it's like common sense. Everybody goes, of course, excuse me. It's not COVID. I just allergies. So don't everybody.
Oh, I'm so glad we're on the screen here.
Sick unless it gets through the wires. I don't know how this magic works through the interwebs. But broken people love in broken ways, and we're all broken. And again, the best takeaway I had, and I struggle with this like everybody else does, is whenever I feel offended or mad or upset, and again, I fail. People are going to listen to this and go, well, he doesn't practice that all the time. Of course not. I'm a human. When I feel that way, though, I try my best to start off with, okay, I'm feeling a certain way. Is it really their fault? And if it is, I need to address it. Or is it part of my brokenness, just me showing up the way I show up to people? In other words, rivers and rocks, one wears down and one stays firm. And at some point in time, we're both to some people. Sometimes we're the river, sometimes we're the rock, sometimes we're the hero, sometimes we're the villain. And I just think it's really good I think people should go to therapy when they're not hurt. That's what I think. I think it's I think it's like vitamins. I think you should take it as needed, not every day, but I think it's good to have somebody like you or Karen that they can call up, or whoever, and call up and just say, okay, it's once a month or once a year. I don't care. I think I would have been better as a dad and a husband and a friend if I had stopped trying to bootstrap it all and just every now and then go to somebody like you that can smack you around a little bit and go, no, you got to look this way. Look in the mirror over here.
First of all, I wouldn't smack you around.
Sure
Second
would.
of all,
You verbally, are you kidding me? Let me tell you something. When you're in a hurt space and somebody goes, oh, I understand. And I'm not saying you did this. I'm saying people in general, I understand. Well, how do you show up? I don't want to talk about how I show up. I want to talk about how they show up. Stop slapping me around.
yeah, I hear what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? It's hard. You said it best. Growth is not only risky, but it's painful. It's growing hurt sometimes. So
I want to challenge something else. We are so fully human. And I don't know if I really want to define you or anybody else or myself as broken. And maybe I don't know. I just like, you're human, you're going through the struggle, and this is part of the human journey. Like it's just part of being a human being. You know what I'm saying?
But that's why you're a professional. See, I would say that because nobody's paying me. You're really good at your job, so you're going to say the same thing in a much better way.
Well, I just, I hear what you're saying. And you know what? If somebody triggers an emotion in you, it's all you. It's all your emotion, right? Whatever is going on. But so we are intricate human beings. This is what I believe about humans, is that, we're complicated. We're human. There's so much mystery. And we don't know ourselves. Okay. So always having an attitude of awareness and aha moments and discovering yourself. So this you don't ever arrive at your authentic self, but it's a journey. It's a journey.
And two, once you realize it's your emotion, then it's up to you to navigate that and process it. You can't abdicate that authority when you can't say somebody needs to stop. There are certain things you need to stop if it's abuse.
Right.
But I'm saying if it's a true emotion and you're hurt, it's up to you to navigate that. You can't ask somebody else to fix you or to heal you.
Exactly. Well, here's what happens is so many people don't know the difference between their the feelings and then the interpretation of the thing that triggered that feeling.
Right.
So if somebody's triggered something to you, you name the feeling. Boy, I just got this, and that's why it's good to know your body. Boy, I got this pit in the bottom of my stomach when you said this is, and then a story I have in my mind about you is that I think da 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 da.
Yeah.
So you can get the story out and claim that it is a story rather than the gospel truth. Right.
Here's what we're going to do.
I'm giving you too much.
No. That's why you're here. Again, I'm going to call people broken and you're going to go, dude, nobody should come to you for counseling. Come to me. That's why you're here. And here's what we're going to do, though, because I've got another question for you. But, I do this podcast, duringthebreakpodcast.com. You can find us on Apple and Spotify and YouTube. But there's a word you use, and I'm going to say this out loud before we exit. There's someone that if you start a podcast series, I think you should interview. And her name is Chastity Snowden. She's a former world CrossFit athlete. She does nutrition and physical or health coaching. She's out of Boca Raton, Florida. But the name of her company is Fearlessly Authentic. And I've had her on my podcast a number of times, but her story about being authentic, she's battled eating disorders. And I think she would be someone good for you to share stories with. And I think it would come from two different perspectives. But when I heard you both talking about authenticity, I thought, got to connect them like with Karen. I got to connect you guys because it's good, good networking.
Absolutely. You're great at that too, by the way. Love it. That you
someday somebody will pay me a lot of money to do that.
You know what? We need to be paying you a lot of money to do that anyway. You know what? You are so worth more than you get paid, Clint,
Well, that's what I try to tell
I want to tell
people.
you that. I think that's true. I think that's
thank
true
you.
of all of us. So yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to end this video right now, but if you want to hear the answer to the question I'm about to ask, they can go to the podcast platforms on my YouTube channel, which will be posted. But you're going to click back in and I'm going to ask you your definition of authenticity because you're big on the word authentic. And I want people to be able to get the next 5 or 10 minutes. What does that mean for you? How do you define that? And how does that affect relationships? And sometimes, why do we skip over trying to be authentic to get to all the other stuff? Because I'm not sure you can really heal until you're authentic. And so I'm going to ask you that. So if you're okay with it, let's stop this video now. and we'll ask that question for the podcast. But before we stop this, tell everybody how to find you in case they want to talk to you about possibly bringing you on to help them.
Yes, you can go to my website, judycounselor.com. And you can also go to my website, and there's a Beyond Messy Relationship audiobook that's coming soon. There's a tab for that. So click on that tab and fill out the form for it. If you buy a Kindle or a print version of the book, and you can get a book for free, author signed copy.
There you
so
go.
There's a way to do that. So yeah,
that's awesome. Thank you very much. Click back in. We'll answer that question about being authentic. But I hope everybody enjoyed this. Go find out more about Judy Herman. And thank you very much, Judy.
Thank you, Clint.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.